This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Parry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
Welcome to another Balanced Advisor Podcast episode with your host, Dr. Travis Parry. Today, I am with Kristin Harad. She's a CFP who founded and grew an independent fee-only RIA before transitioning to training advisors. She uses this firsthand knowledge along with 14 years of corporate marketing and an ad agency experience to help RIAs attract more of the right people. Kristen serves as an outsourced fractional chief marketing officer for independent RIAs, as well as marketing coach for solo advisors. Fulfilling a lifelong dream to live and work abroad, Kristen and with her husband and 2 kids moved to Sydney, Australia in 2015. She ran a consulting business remotely for nearly 3 years before returning to San Francisco in 2018. It's nice to have you back with us in the States. Kristen, thanks for being on the show and welcome.
Thanks, Travis. It's good to be here. I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite topics in the world, the inevitable trying to find and achieve balance.
Yeah, so that's it. We're going to get there. But first, tell us, how did you get here? How did you end up as the CMO, fractional CMO, marketing coach for advisors? I think you had a little bit of a different entryway.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, when I worked right out of college, I went to New York and worked for Chase Manhattan at the time, which is now JP Morgan Chase. And so I was sort of launched into the financial world. I worked in marketing there. So, a lot of people went in and did investment banking. I went into marketing. And then I quickly moved from there over to a direct marketing agency where Chase was my client. So I was on all kinds of consumer products, right? Whether it was home equity lines of credit cards, brokerage accounts, so I was immersed in marketing for financial products. And so that's where I really, kind of cut my teeth and learned direct marketing strategy, which was pretty gritty then. This was in the mid 90s. And it wasn't glamorous like now where everyone's like, oh, a call to action. This was like, mailing and phone calls and 800 numbers and all kinds of good things like that. So my career pretty much launched from there. And I moved out to California a few years later and continued out here. I worked for Charles Schwab out here. And they have an in-house ad agency. So we kind of launched some of their web stuff. It was getting into like late 90s. We were getting into some of that. So sort of quickly to cover, my corporate experience was primarily around these kind of large personal financial brands. And so learning the acquisition, retention, loyalty techniques and strategies and developing those. But at my last corporate job, I was working for Visa. What's that company? That's the credit card company. Yeah. So I was consulting to Visa for an agency and we were working with the member banks. And I was like, I feel like I have zero impact on a human's life, right? Like I'm trying to talk a bank into choosing to use a certain credit card and doing these PowerPoint presentations for that. And I was just like, this is so empty. Like I'm getting no personal fulfillment out of this. So long story short, I quit to become a life coach. Actually, my husband and I traveled around the world a bit, took a little time off. Then I became a life coach or wanted to. I went to start training for that. And then I realized selling yourself as I can help you with your life is kind of a tough sell, right? So I think the CEO of the training school that I was at, actually, I was working in marketing for them because I figured, okay, let me work in marketing at the coaching school. That'll be cool. And he was the one who said, you have to pick a niche, which I was like, duh, of course, because in marketing, we always pick niche, right? That was step one, pick your niche, then start going. So I had also concurrently been working with a financial planner, a CFP, and loved it. I was the geeky one who brought in my balance sheet and all of that stuff. And then I just started asking her, so how did you get into it? What did you do? And so I learned about the track for that and sort of set myself on the educational path, took the intro course, then decided, oh, I'm just going to start my own RIA. I had no idea what I was doing. Mid 2000s, I was 35. In there, I had a baby, and then finished the coursework, and then I was like, I'll just start my own RIA. So I went through that, set up my firm, and went from there and did that for about 8 years, just directly helping new and expectant parents and families with young children. So that was how I got into the field, and then I can get into the rest in a bit if you want. So
yeah, I mean, that got you to the industry. That got you,
yeah.
Here, which is really, we talked about in the pre-show, like it's kind of polar opposite, but we kind of ended up in the same place. Yeah. I started as a down that path to CFP and really became a coach. We're kind of crisscrossing, but now you're really working to help advisors, in their marketing, which we'll get to in a minute. Right. So with that, you're running your business, you're traveling abroad. We're glad you're back in the States. You've got teenage children, and you're married, and you're growing this thing. So tell us about your definition of balance. How does that fit into this equation?
This is one of my favorite topics, which is why I jumped at the chance to talk to you. But what do I consider? What I think balance is the freedom to focus on what you want to focus on without guilt. And kind of said another way, the freedom to focus with presence at that exact time, right? So whether it's I'm at my kids' events, or I'm doing a work event, or I'm out with my husband, or I'm taking care of my personal health, it's like I feel free to do that on my schedule at my time, or on their, when I want to, without feeling like I should be in another spot. So that's my definition of it. I am still a student of that, but that is when I think about what does balance mean. It means that I'm doing all the things in my life and feeling that when I'm doing one, I can be fully present there.
Yeah, being fully present. I'm listening to a book about mindfulness and being present in the moment. And, it oftentimes helps me think about what my dad's advice to me, which I put in the book, Achieving Balance, about how as a pilot, you're always off course. You set a goal, where you want to get to, but literally you're always off course. You're just trying to get back on course. And mindfulness and being present seems to me a very difficult thing with all the distractions. Like even right before the right when the pre-show, I had to, silence my phone, turn things off, turn things over. And I turn on the, on air button so that my staff knows that, hey, he's on a podcast, there's all these things to keep us here. So we're focused. Mm-hmm. Yet none of us are perfect at this. There's always distractions. There's always things that are
happening. And something I've learned about myself on that is that I know I worked with a therapist in my late 20s, early 30s, who was fabulous, taught me a lot helped me find out a lot about myself. And one thing that I realized or been able to crystallize is that I am very vision oriented, right? So I love creating the where am I going? And then the vision drives me. And I draw, as he said, I remember so specific. He's like, you draw energy from that future vision, right? So he's like that, that's what gets you excited and all that. And sometimes, that obviously, whenever there's a gap between where you are now and the future, it can also open the window of worry, right? And anxiety, which is kind of the flip side of energy, right? So it's something I grapple with and have to deal with as well. But when I try to be focused in the present, I find myself drifting future because I'm seeking, it's easier if I can look out there and live out there because it's not here yet and I can go out there. And so it's very interesting to me and I kind of set presence as my word for this year because when I'm at my son's wrestling match, I'm there, right? I'm not checking my texts or my email, and I'm here, and this is what I'm doing. And I've found myself able to do that this year in a good way, and it's been a conscious effort, But I'm like, no, this is what I'm doing right now, right here, and this is it. I'm at a theater performance. I'm at a theater with my daughter, helping her, helping the kids get in their costumes. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing this. I'm not trying to answer a call or take a Zoom meeting on the side or walk around the block or whatever.
And you're right, like that. And that's kind of what I was getting with the analogy with the airplanes. Like we're always getting back to balance.
Yeah,
back to being present. So if balance for you is really being in the present, and it's a constant struggle, constant struggle to keep getting into this balance. But there's several myths we outline in the book. We talk about the myth of trying to do it all, and I find there are some advisors who are do-it-alls that they're doing everything because they think they can. A lot of times these are younger advisors who don't really have much of experience, and they're less focused on time outside of work. And it's just like they can easily
it blends more, right? There's fewer high stakes priorities in the same way, right?
So I mean the problem with that is that I think the industry kind of falls into this category of preying on younger advisors who they can kind of get them in and work them hard and spit them out if they need to, but they get the productivity out of them. And I'm not talking about every aspect of the industry, the industry as a whole.
Yeah. I was going to say, I've seen quite the movement to, the in the fee only or independent space where people coming in and the younger people starting their firms are setting more of a balance intention, though I'm not sure, they necessarily have the answer to that yet, but that is at least the values or the tenets behind what they want to create. And I think that's where some of the disappointment can come in when you have that. I want it to be this way. I envision that as being an entrepreneur, the freedom and the success to do what I want to do and balance my life. And the reality is I have to wear all of these hats and I didn't count on that. And now what? Right. And so then it's like, ooh, then you feel that I'm not in alignment with what I wanted. And this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that is what I call sliding, falling into the workaholic trap.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm here, now I'm stuck. And they start to work on themselves, they become productive, they develop themselves personally, which is helpful, but it is sort of an evolution to be balanced. So this is a constant for us to continually trying to reach back to being present, staying present in the moment, being in our best mindset for balance. What do you think personally are some of the biggest issues for you that prevent you from coming back to this present moment?
Oh, that's a good question. Like I said, one thing is I've been grappling or dealing or sort of managing a general anxiety disorder, which I hate to even call it that, but it is. And I take medication and have done therapy for this for decades, right? So it's a thing, and I've managed it and I've done it really well. And so remembering, I've heard you talk about this before, cognitive behavioral techniques. So bless you. Cognitive behavioral therapy taught me kind of like, how do you work with how your head, how your mind works to productively move forward in the world and do things, which, that what keeps me from being present is when I let the noise, the anxiety overtake the present moment. And so it can come in screaming. And if I don't use the techniques that I have kind of mastered over the decades of learning them, that literally 20 some years now, then I'm looking outside in a different moment. And it's like, come back. I've done a ton of yoga. I have not yet gotten into meditation. I haven't found that, but right now it's just like focusing on, this is what I'm doing, and I'll say it's gotten easier, Travis, with having my kids who are teenagers now, because you can see the window closing, right? Like, oh my goodness, they're growing into adults. They're going to be going to, and you can feel it. And it's like, this is more important than anything right now. I have to do this. And so that's helped me a lot. Just the general realization of you only get, this is my time,
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I think that's one of the biggest motivators you have, staying present, staying in this moment, is the fact that you really value your time with your children, with your family. That probably, I'm putting words in your mouth, but it sounds like that is a very big motivating factor for you to keep your balance, right?
Yes. And what's fascinating is I love running my own business. And I've always identified, since even, getting pregnant and having my first child, is I'm a working mom. Like, that to me was part of my identity and still is. And like, I'm an entrepreneur and this is what I do. And so here's where the balance gets thrown off, because I'm also like, I want to be present and involved with my children while giving them independence to do their things. But I have kind of this Gen X work ethic, play hard, work hard, play hard. Like, if you're not logging the hours, then you aren't kind of worthy of the reward, right? Like, you got to put the hours in. If you're not putting the hours in, then what's that? So that's kind of one of my biggest, that perception. My biggest challenge, I think, is not that I can't be present with I'm really good at, I'm there. I've gotten good at that. I've never had an issue with self-care and fitness and being like, well, got to go work out. I just do that every day. That's just what I do. I will run into it a bit with my husband, just because it's easy to back burner that. So I'm trying to bring that back to the front. But the part where I get stuck is when I am working 25-hour weeks. And I've kind of structured it that it's 25 to 32 hours a week is all I work. And depends on the week and how full I am. And I kind of structure things. And that is where the guilt comes in. Because if I could do great work for 4.5 hours and be like, whew, that was great. And I look and go, maybe the clock will say I worked this many hours. And I look and I go, it was only 4.5 hours. Like, does that count? And that's been my last, I'd say, year for sure. I mean, I've been tracking my time religiously to get a sense of how much am I working, and not counting the early pandemic days where I just worked all the time. But I set a target of 32 hours a week, and I'm lucky if I hit that number. Which I hate to say on this, to think, oh, I'm not working on your stuff, but I focus, and I have this great window of focus for a period of time, and then I move on, and then I might revisit a little later in the day, but I'm grappling a lot with that. And I know you've dealt with that too. Or at least you've been able to be on the winning side of that. I don't know if you had the same stressor.
You know what? I think guilt and shame, as you've been in therapy and you understand the guilt and shame cycle, we can easily, as humans, guilt and shame ourselves into changing behavior. Like, we talk, you mentioned the behavioral cognitive aspects. If all we care about is behavior change, if that's it, we miss a huge portion. And that's the cognitive, mental, spiritual, like, put it all together. We miss the spiritual, we miss the mental changes that happen in our life that really make us who we are.
Right.
It's what we do. I find a lot of advisors, a lot of business owners, people in general, tend to set goals based on what they want to accomplish.
Right.
What they want to do instead of who they want to become.
Yes.
Before of my book, I want to say it's chapter 3, we talk all about values. And actually, it's chapter 2. I had double check. Chapter 2, values. Like, we talk about this idea of it's not just about what you accomplish, but who you become.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I keep coming back to, Kristen. And when those voices get in my head, those shame and blame cycles in my head, I simply go back to my values. And I remind myself every week, sometimes every day, Travis, this is who you are.
Yeah.
And the more I can focus on my values, the less that those other voices out there even show up.
Right.
Honestly, that's what I teach my clients, because balance isn't just about the time. It's about
Right.
it's about who we become in this process.
Exactly. Oh, 100%. And I can tell you're a life coach, because it's very much like really good, like whole life focus, which a lot of advisors want to, they take a holistic approach, is about what do you want to achieve and who do you want to become, or who do you want to be in that journey, right? And like you said, like it's, and I think it's James Clear, maybe in Atomic Habits, who also, I mean, a lot of people touch on that concept, the idea of like, who do you want to become? Like, what are the habits of a fit person? Like versus I want to get fit and I'm going to do 3 workouts a week or whatever. It's like, what are the attributes or habits of that person that you want to be? Oh, I want to be someone who works out every day. Oh, okay. Then you're aspiring to become a person who does what, or who is this. And so I think that when you're talking about values, bringing it back, it kind of takes it up a few levels on that, but all motivating in that, and stuff that I internalize for sure.
Yeah, no, it's good. So let's talk about the industry a little bit.
Yep.
You not only been an advisor, you help literally hundreds, thousands of advisors with their marketing. You've seen them on a daily basis, what they struggle with, some of the issues that they deal with. Part of the show is just like calling it out, like saying, hey, this is what we're dealing with as an industry, as advisors. What do you think is keeping advisors from having great balance and scaling their practices in the meantime?
Not everyone's going to like this answer. And it'll seem like it's self-serving, but the biggest thing I see at the kind of highest level is advisors do not put the priority on marketing like running a business warrant. So if you are the advisor who owns the business and runs the business, or you're a partner and responsible for growth, so if you have that responsibility in your role, you have to wear a marketing hat, and it comes right. It's out of the E-Myth. It's out of all. It's like you have certain things you have to understand. And if you're going to run a business, I'm sorry, marketing and sales are part of it, right? So I find that when people come and whine and say, I don't really like to do marketing, I'm not good at marketing, I don't want to do it, or I don't want to sell, I don't want to, it's like, it's part of the, then get a job, and I don't mean to be so blunt about it, but that's kind of at that level. And so then once I get, with a little empathy, right, it's like, okay, I understand it's not really what you thought you had to get into. And we all had to get into things we didn't want to get into. And you're like, for me, it's like the operations side. I don't want to deal with that. And it's like, well, grow up, you got to do it, or you got to find someone to help you. Because if you're choosing to run a business, you have to understand these things, right? So there's some of that. So that to me is like one of the things, because then marketing's put on the back burner and don't think about it, and then we don't grow. And then it's kind of a cycle that's, unfortunately, with our business, marketing rarely pays off quickly, right? And so you have to kind of do things consistently over time. And in terms of sales, or wherever you see the handoff between marketing and sales, it's not a fast cycle, right? So it's a patience game and a consistency game, and it can throw you off balance because there's just so many things you could do, or you kind of have to have the endurance to do.
A good point. I mean, this is a long play. This is typically not a short, sell.
Right. You can have those wins
from the industry that really may not even work here, but short term, long term, like that. Absolutely. There's a difference between advertising and marketing, right?
Sure.
There's a difference between like actually putting content out there long term, so you can have a name and a reputation, versus, hey, do you have this need and I can help you right now?
Right.
Both are important. What I think a lot of advisors struggle with is exactly that, is they don't view what they're doing as as a business until they really are in the shoes of the people that you're helping, which is our RIA. A lot of times, they're not looking at this as a business. How do I structure this? CEO, COO, CMO, CFO, building that up to the point where they want it. Where a lot of advisors, they're independent, but they're solo. And so they're going it alone. I could absolutely see how something that you provide and, fractional CFO, fractional CEO, other pieces that are incredibly helpful. It doesn't mean they have to grow a huge business.
Yeah, it's like I think it depends on what when you get back to what do they value and what do they want. I meet so many solo advisors who just want to be solo advisors and run their RIA and have some support team or freelancers or helpers, which is all fine. And it's not really, I'm not even saying they have to do all of the marketing themselves. They do have to have some, but it's more that it's given the equal priority that it needs in the realm of like, okay, if you want to have the right to grow or the right to keep it just how it is, let's make sure that you've set things up in a way that's going to serve you in that way. And obviously people who want to grow and add and create more are going to have, it becomes more of an emphasis for them than if you build up a practice, you maintain and you're good. I could get into why you still need to do marketing, but that's, less of a focus probably.
Yeah, this is good. It's good to chat about this because I think a lot of advisors, depending on where they're at, they struggle. And obviously we're starting to work on the next book.
Yeah, that's, I can't wait to read it. So write quickly.
All right. Balance growth, how to scale without losing your balance. I found that a lot of advisors who get balance, like they struggle with this because they're afraid. They're afraid that, if I grow, it means that I'm going to lose balance. And I'm here to tell you, I work 28, 30 hours a week. I have a small team. We're not a huge company, but we're multiple six figures. That we're doing a great job for a lot of people. And you can be solo. You can be kind of a boutique size firm like ours. You can be ginormous, but it's really about where you set your boundaries and how you decide you want to do this marketing, where you want to scale. So when we talk about scale and growth, it could be that you want to scale with marketing. Like this is where you and I overlap a lot, right?
Yeah.
But it could be that your marketing is doing phenomenal and you want to scale on the defense. I call it more the defense with your own team, your support, everything else in-house. And some I found advisors struggle to do the marketing because they're like, my team, it's not where I need it to be.
Right. I could see that. Yep.
So I'm curious for you, because you're agreeing to this, like, I'm curious, have you had experience with advisors who struggle with that, who are afraid to scale because their team isn't where it needs to be?
Well, I don't know as much as afraid. Yes, I see this a lot. And so it's more being on that brink of as they've been solo and they maybe have had, a part-time helping and then an admin and, they have the fractional people here and there helping with support. And it's not that they're necessarily afraid, though sometimes it's fear. They want to. And I will say, and even the people I work with, they, when we give them enough space to free them up, they are usually quite good at marketing, whether it's creating content or, engaging with figuring out a process behind the marketing or creating a system, wherever their strength is. So it's great to see that come out. But what does stop them is exactly what you're saying, which is, I think I'm going to have to bring in another advisor, or I'm almost at my capacity and I can't serve these clients the way I want to, and I can't let that go. So it comes in, I think you're right on there, Travis, more so, not necessarily more so, but they can get, like when I'm working with people, they can get excited and turned around about marketing, being like, I do love it. It's fun. It's great when you can give them the space to be creative. And then when it is working, it's like, I can't do all the plans, or I got to also meet with the clients, or I got to do blah, blah. And then I have to, and I talk to them about nurturing different parts of the funnel. And they're like, head explode. Yeah. So That one has come up more and more in the last 2 years, I'll say. Just I have to hire someone. Who should I bring in and how am I going to do that? And I didn't think I wanted to manage people. And I can't say I don't empathize, because I do, because I'm the same way. I've hit my max on one person work, in terms of the model I have. And so now it's like, okay, if I'm scaling, what does that mean? How does that look? What does that have to look like? Is it people? Is it technology? Is it all of, both of the above, So what is the answer, Travis? I'm here to learn as much as you. So
it's like, I've coached soccer, I've coached volleyball, I've played like team sports. When it comes to a team sport, I think it's different when you're solo. Like, I would ride my mountain bike, I snowboard. Solo sports are fun, but team sports are different, because if you're trying to scale, you're trying to grow, and you want to do this productively. You don't just want to grow, right? You want to do it productively. Then you've got to really look at your team and say, how's our offense? How's our defense?
Interesting.
I mean, it can get so much more sophisticated. Blaine Weiss, Alan Darby, I've had them on the podcast. They've done a fantastic job of explaining this more in depth. But for me, I see it in two ways. It's either lack of motivation comes because they don't want to grow, scale, or they have trouble with their team, the defense. I'm going to take too much on, or they don't know how, struggle with, have a fear of putting themselves out there and marketing and advertising. Now, for me, because I have little fear.
Yeah.
I have little fear that I have stumbled through and made mistakes. And others do too, like other advisors, who are more in line with how I think, that don't have a lot of fear. Sometimes they don't plan as well, and they go out and they charge through and make some mistakes. And they learn, and like that learning is important. So I've found that sometimes they've tried to scale, they tried to grow, they tried to market on the offense, and it didn't work. They lost a lot of money, so they give up. And it's the same goes true. Like, they try to hire, they try to manage teams. Like, I don't ever want to do that again. That's ridiculous. I just want to be solo. I want to do this all myself. And either one has a problem with balance. Because if you don't use your offense team correctly, then you're not bringing in the revenue that the business needs so that you can have greater balance.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
The same with the defense. Like, if you can't find really good people to put on the bus, as Jim Collins says, if you don't have that team ready to go, then when you do bring clients on, it's causing you more problems. And I've seen it both ways. I've made lots of mistakes both ways. That's kind of how I, really quick and dirty look at it on a team approach. But I know that, you're helping these teams with their marketing.
Sure.
They come to you and they're like, hey, I would really like some help, with a fractional CMO. I've looked at doing this. I'm a solo advisor. You're right. There's no way I really could do this, and I don't want to hire someone full time. How does that work with you? How do you help them to keep their balance this way?
Yeah, so it depends. I work with advisors in two ways. So I can either be a fractional CMO, which is usually for a larger RIA. So someone who has a few $100 million under management, kind of up to $1 billion or $1.5 billion. And that's where I will, become part of the team and lead the strategy and figure out the marketing plan and help, teach the team and bring the team, and look at the resources and see what we need to do. So kind of looking at both sides of the offense and defense in that. And then when I'm doing one-on-one coaching with solo advisors or advisors within a larger firm who kind of want to focus on their own efforts, that's where it's really kind of first, like you said, what is it that they want? Like, what do they, my first question is, what do you want to create? Like, what is success? What is your idea? What are you looking for? And then I ask about, essentially what's your goal? Like, why are you reaching out? And then we get into, well, how are you spending your time now? And how would you like to spend your time? So just so I can see, like, what do they like? What do they want to do? And then we start talking about, okay, where did you get your last 10 clients? Are they the kind of people you like to work with? What about them is it that you like? And so, usually I kind of start with the idea of and this gets into balance at kind of another level, which is, I think of it like they usually say, oh, I have certain clients I really like. You're like, oh, good. Tell me about them. And then I was like, what if you had all those people? Like, what if everyone in your practice were those people? Oh, yeah, then I don't know if I'd have enough, Well, I'm like, when we get into balance, I'm like, what if we only look to attract in those kind of people that you like? And I call that the high value hyper target, which is who are the people who appreciate your value, will pay you what you want to earn, and you enjoy being with, and you can provide the best service to. So it's like, ooh, no, it's almost like they feel like compelled, like they have to balance it out with the people who are a pain in the butt, who pay them a lot more money, who have a bigger balance or something to like, okay, it's like, what if we only went here and you only worked with those people? Oh, okay. And then we explore that and dive into that. And then that's kind of the foundation for the marketing strategy.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful way to do it, because you're reverse engineering their life. Like you are, in your way, Kristen, you're helping them to really have a better life balance because of that. And in essence, you're taking the life coaching principles.
Yeah, exactly.
It's engineering their life and saying, hey, you're busy, you're great, but let's re-engineer this so that you can be working toward this end goal of what your lifestyle practice can look like.
Yeah.
Just being a cog in the wheel. This is great. If advisors want to learn more about what you do and how you do it, how do they reach you? What's the best way to get
the best way is to go to my website, which is simply my name, KristinHarad.com. So it's 2 I's, 2 A's. I know it'll be in the show notes, but KristinHarad.com. And then I actually put together a resource for anyone who tunes in for this episode, and they can go download that just as a sort of assessment tool for their business. And it's at KristinHarad.com/balance-advisor. So just out there, free download, something they can take a look at and kind of take an assessment on their marketing and what, the next steps might be best for them.
Love it. Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your thoughts about balance, and honestly being a part of this movement of trying to help advisors be more balanced and really coming back to that, your very first desire to really coach and help individuals. I think what you're doing is phenomenal. And, if you guys want to reach out to Kristen, please do. We'll have those links in the show notes. If you've liked this segment, if you like this podcast, share it, like it, subscribe, tell us how we're doing. We're really, quite honestly, surprised, because the last couple of days I found out we were on lists that we didn't even know we were on FeedStack. We're in the top 5 podcasts about our advisor podcasts. So it's because of you guys. It's because of your listenership and your faithful listening. So thank you. And to guests like you, Kristen, thanks for being on the show, for your insights and your help. And until next time.
Thank you, Travis. Thanks for having me.